In a twist of fate, one man's long-standing grudge against a black customer led to the humiliation of a lifetime. A dealership manager thought he was in control. He didn't know who he was dealing with. It started with a simple confrontation, a misunderstanding, or so he thought. What came next was far beyond what anyone could have imagined. A confrontation escalated into a scandal that would rock the business world. And this manager? He had no idea the person he was throwing out had a far more significant role than anyone could have guessed. But let's rewind a bit. It was an ordinary afternoon at Feelings Auto Group, a dealership that prided itself on customer service. The smell of new leather filled the air as potential buyers walked the lot, eyeing the shiny vehicles. But then it happened. A black man, dressed simply in a suit, walked up to the front desk. He'd been there before, a regular customer for years. Yet this time, something felt off. The manager, Thomas Jenkins, greeted him with a cold, dismissive glance. "Can I help you?" he asked, his tone flat. "I'm here to ask about financing options," the man said calmly, placing a brochure on the counter. Jenkins' eyes narrowed. He had been there for years and had dealt with hundreds of customers, each one a potential sale. But something about this man rubbed him the wrong way. Perhaps it was the way he carried himself. Too confident for someone who clearly wasn't in the market for a new car. Or maybe it was the way the man spoke, as if he knew more than the average buyer. Jenkins didn't know, but he didn't care. He had his own agenda. "You can't afford what you're asking for," Jenkins said, his voice dripping with condescension. "This isn't a charity." The black man's expression didn't change. He remained calm, almost too calm, as he simply replied, "I can afford it, and I'm not here for a handout." Jenkins, still eyeing the man with suspicion, waved him off. "Then you're wasting my time." The next few minutes were a blur. Jenkins grew increasingly frustrated, his tone harsh as he continued to dismiss the man's inquiries. "You need to leave," he finally snapped, standing up from behind the counter. For a moment, the black man paused. His expression was unreadable, but there was a flicker of something. Disappointment? Anger? No one knew. What was clear, however, was that this was not just another customer being shown the door. "You're asking me to leave?" The man's voice dropped, his words deliberate. "You do realize who I am, don't you?" Jenkins scoffed. "Yeah, and who would that be?" Another one of those entitled customers who thinks they can get away with anything. A small smile crept onto the man's face. He shook his head. No, you don't understand. You're kicking out the person who owns this dealership." Jenkins froze. He blinked, the words hanging in the air. His mind raced, trying to process what had just been said. "What?" The man slowly pulled out his wallet, extracting a business card. He handed it over with a calm, measured grace. Jenkins took it, still in disbelief, his fingers trembling slightly as he turned it over. On the card, it said, "Owner, Feelings Auto Group." Jenkins' heart dropped. His face turned pale, his mouth went dry. His first instinct was to laugh, thinking it was some sort of joke. But then he looked at the man again. This time, a little differently. The man smiled once more, as if savoring the moment. "I suggest you think carefully about how you treat people here, Jenkins. And next time, maybe do some research before you judge." But that wasn't even the twist. The real shocker came when Jenkins tried to recover from the mortifying situation. Flustered, he immediately tried to apologize, but the man was already walking out of the dealership. Wait. Jenkins called, rushing to follow him outside. "I can explain. I'm sorry, I didn't know. Please, let me make this right." But the black man didn't stop. He reached his car, opened the door, and paused. "You'll know soon enough. I'll be back," he said, then drove off, leaving Jenkins standing there, drenched in humiliation. As Jenkins returned to his office, his phone buzzed. It was an email from the higher-ups. Subject: urgent, immediate investigation regarding managerial behavior. It turns out the black man was no ordinary businessman. Not only did he own the dealership, but he also had deep connections in the corporate world. As an influential entrepreneur with a powerful network, his presence in the car industry was a game changer. But Jenkins hadn't just made an enemy of a wealthy businessman. He had humiliated someone who had the power to bring the dealership's downfall. The wheels were already in motion. Jenkins would soon learn just how high the stakes were. The next morning, as he walked into work, he saw a few unfamiliar faces sitting in the lobby. They were dressed in suits and carried briefcases. A voice called out to him, "Thomas Jenkins?" He turned around, and there, standing in front of him, was the black man from the day before, now accompanied by 2 lawyers. "I think we need to have a serious conversation," the man said with a chilling smile. But before Jenkins could respond, he was handed an envelope, the contents of which would change everything. And just like that, the story of his life took a dangerous turn. What would Jenkins face next? Was his career over before it even really began? Could he escape the consequences of his actions? The envelope in Jenkins' hand felt heavier than it should have. His palms were clammy as he stared at it, unsure of what to expect. His breath caught in his throat. He was already sweating, beads of cold, nervous sweat. The black man, now sitting comfortably across from Jenkins with his lawyers, was silent. The tension in the room was thick, suffocating. Jenkins could feel it. He wanted to apologize again, but something told him this wasn't going to end the way he hoped. Finally, the man spoke, his voice calm, measured, and terrifyingly composed. "I think you've earned a lesson today, Jenkins. A lesson in humility and respect." Jenkins gulped. He had no idea what was coming. The man's lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman in a dark suit, leaned forward and slid a document across the table. Jenkins instinctively reached for it, but the black man's voice stopped him. "Before you read that," he said, "understand this. This is bigger than just a business mistake. What you did wasn't just bad customer service. It was a gross violation of trust, respect, and decency. People like you need to understand that actions have consequences, and sometimes the consequences aren't just about losing a job." Jenkins' mind raced. Was this a threat? Was he about to lose everything? The document in front of him was labeled in bold, black text, "Legal complaint and immediate termination notice." His heart dropped. The words blurred before his eyes, but he could make out the essentials. The dealership was suing him for discriminatory behavior, a breach of trust, and a series of other allegations related to his conduct. It wasn't just about getting fired. This was going to destroy his career. And it wasn't just about him. The lawsuit involved potential damages that could bankrupt him personally and professionally. Jenkins was in deep, and he knew it. His hands trembled as he slowly unfolded the paper. The black man continued, his voice never wavering. "You'll find that I've already been in touch with your superiors, and they're not happy with your behavior. That's putting it mildly. They've agreed to proceed with a full review of your actions. But here's the twist. You'll have the option to resign quietly or face the consequences in a very public, very damaging way. It's your choice." Jenkins tried to speak, but the words caught in his throat. His mind was racing. "Please, I didn't know. I didn't mean to." The man raised a hand to silence him. "I'm not here for your excuses. You don't get to make the rules anymore, Jenkins. You've had your chance." The lawyer leaned back, her gaze piercing. "If you resign, there's a chance we can avoid further legal action, but if you want to fight this, know that we'll make sure the world knows exactly what you did." Jenkins was paralyzed. He couldn't move, couldn't think. Everything he had worked for was crumbling around him. "Now, I suggest you sign," the lawyer said, her voice cold as ice. Jenkins sat there, staring at the paper. His life, his career, his reputation, it was all on the line. But what choice did he have? His mind spun with the weight of what was at stake. The man in front of him, the man he had so arrogantly dismissed, wasn't just some random customer. He was a powerful entrepreneur with connections that reached far beyond what Jenkins could even fathom. The reality of his mistake hit him like a ton of bricks. He could feel his career slipping away, like sand through his fingers. He had been so caught up in his own sense of authority, his own biases, that he had failed to recognize the danger of underestimating someone. Jenkins exhaled sharply, signing the document with shaky hands. "I'll resign," he muttered, his voice barely audible. The black man nodded. "Wise choice." The lawyer stood up, sliding the signed paper into her briefcase. She turned to Jenkins with a final, unforgiving glance. "You'll be hearing from our team soon. Don't make this worse than it already is." Jenkins walked out of the office with the weight of the world on his shoulders. The dealership felt colder than it had ever been. The buzz of the cars, the hum of the air conditioning, the distant chatter of employees, it all felt like a dream, a world he no longer belonged to. In the days that followed, news of Jenkins' resignation spread like wildfire. The dealership was forced to issue a statement, explaining the internal changes and pledging a new commitment to diversity and respect. But for Jenkins, the damage was done. As for the black man, the one Jenkins had so easily dismissed, his name would soon be all over the news. The dealership had been part of his empire, and now, with Jenkins out of the picture, the business would flourish even more. The man's true identity was revealed, not just the owner of the dealership, but an influential investor with holdings in several industries. He had been keeping a close eye on the dealership's operations for years, but Jenkins had never once realized the magnitude of the person he had humiliated. Jenkins learned too late that some people aren't to be underestimated. His actions had led to his downfall, and now he had to live with the consequences. The dealership, now under new leadership, thrived. The black man had the last word, showing the world just how fragile power can be. Jenkins, meanwhile, was left to pick up the pieces of a life he had once taken for granted. He was no longer the big shop manager. He was a cautionary tale, a warning to anyone who dared to judge someone based on the color of their skin. And the world? It had changed in a way Jenkins could never have anticipated. The end.